Idaho Matters is one way to learn about the people, the places, and the things that make Idaho unique. From the geography, the flora and the fauna, to the culture and arts of this place that we call home. Subscribe and listen to Idaho Matters today at boisestatepublicradio.org/podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. Thanksgiving means turkey and football and family gatherings. It also means the start of the holiday travel season. Close to 500,000 Idahoans will travel this coming weekend, and a lot more folks will be on the road this year all over the country. So here with us today is Matthew Conde, the Public and Government Affairs Director with AAA Idaho. Matthew, it's always nice to have you on the program.
Hey, Gemma, thanks for having me back.
So how many people in Idaho are you expecting to see traveling this weekend for Thanksgiving? I mean, I said 500,000. That seems crazy.
It really is. If you're talking about 80 million Americans and 464,000 Idahoans making that trip, it's really an astonishing number, but it's a continuation of a trend we've seen for every major holiday. And something that's been going on for the last couple of years, really. People have been kind of reloading and they come to realize that this is an essential part of their life, a real important investment to them. And so, you know, travel is not quite as discretionary as maybe it used to be. And so that's where we're starting to see record numbers year over year, almost every year for the last few. It's pretty shocking.
Are you expecting to see more people like hitting the roads versus the air, at least when we're talking about Idaho, or how do we even know how to track that?
Well, it's pretty amazing stuff. We're actually seeing a new record for every category. So you're going to see a new record in cars. That's 71.7 million people, 5.8 million people flying. And it's just a record everywhere you go. Planes, trains, automobiles, cruises, you name it. We got it covered, but it's going to be busy out there no matter how you go.
And I'm assuming, Matthew, there will be more people traveling this year than last year.
That's right. It's about a 2% jump from a year ago, another almost 2 million people, 1.7 million. So, you know, everybody is getting out there. And what we're seeing with the flexible work schedules and remote work opportunities, a lot of people are making those stretches over the holidays. And Thanksgiving is kind of leading the way because just getting somewhere and being kind of in the family circle and then sneaking off and doing a meeting and coming back, it's just something that a lot more people are able to do these days. And so they're embracing that technology and making the most of those trips.
So I'm really curious then, too, as you said, you know, it's holiday season travel always seems to begin at Thanksgiving. And then we're going to see more travel, I would think, as we get ready for Christmas. Any projections on what that might look like?
Well, you know, we're on this upward trajectory and we see no reason why that wouldn't continue. So while Thanksgiving leads the way in total volume, we are still talking about records being broken all year long. So highly likely that we'll be facing something similar as we get to the end of year holidays. And there again, things are pretty good in terms of the flexibility of travel. What may work to our advantage a little bit is that it's not quite as condensed. And so some people will do a little bit more of their vacation before the holidays. Some people will be able to extend after. So there may not be quite the density at the airports and things like that you'll see for Thanksgiving, where people have a little bit narrower window of opportunity. Obviously, Wednesday afternoon is going to be very busy, whether you're at the airport or on the road. And then Sunday morning coming back will be a good time to fly or drive. And Thanksgiving Day itself, of course, because a lot of people are already at their destination. So if you're one of the few that's deciding for that spontaneous last-minute trip, Thanksgiving Day might be to your advantage.
That is true, especially maybe Thanksgiving morning, right? Get and head out then.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about top 10 destinations for Idahoans, sometimes people like to know Anaheim. Anaheim still has that top spot. You know it. And then people go to some of the other destinations like Las Vegas, a little bit more regionally with Salt Lake. Seattle kind of got pounded lately by weather, but they're number 4. There's still a little bit of recovery happening there. Hopefully that takes place before the holiday travel. And then there's people heading for other warm weather locales, Honolulu, Phoenix, San Diego. And then the skiers are getting out there. Bend and Jackson, Wyoming, lots of cool opportunities for just about everybody. And one thing that's really been lending a helping hand this time around is cheaper gas prices. They've been cheaper all year.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, much better than last year. So will that potentially get more folks, on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people's happy dance looks like.
Yeah.
Mine isn't worth displaying, but when you go to the pump and you're saving 50 cents a gallon, and pretty much it's been that way all year, you take the glass half full approach. And whether you're going to translate to cheaper costs for travel, you're doing that road trip and you're saying, okay, it's a little bit more affordable, or you're making the reverse argument and you're saying, well, I've been saving all year and now I have that money to put towards that plane ticket or put towards that
Hmm.
road trip. Really doesn't matter. It's a fixed cost for a lot of people, obviously, not just the lifeblood of your travel, but also your daily commute, your running of errands, all that stuff. And so anytime you can save money in that part of your budget, people will reinvest it in other ways. If you look at the prices for travel this time around, let's talk about real quick. Domestic airfare is about 3% higher than a year ago on
Hmm.
average. You're
Hmm.
looking at about a 2% lower cost for car rentals. But then the big jumps that are kind of crazy, a big increase in domestic hotel stays, about 28% higher than a year ago. And then,
Wow.
interesting enough, despite the fact that they're setting a new record, cheaper cruises, 28% lower on average than a year ago.
Hmm.
So there are some savings being captured out there. It's really kind of interesting to see all that in play.
Okay, let's also talk about things like breaking down if you're driving or something like that, because it happens, and if it's going to happen at the most inopportune times. And I'm curious about how many people AAA helps during this time period, but also the fact that, and this is not a commercial for AAA. I want to be very clear about that. But I've literally had AAA since I was 16 years old. Like my parents gave me that for a birthday gift every year. I did not appreciate it at 16, nor at 20, nor at 25. But I sure appreciate it every single time I have an issue. And so, how critically important is it that folks make a plan if their car breaks down, whether they have AAA or not?
Absolutely. No matter how you go, you need to have a plan. And if that plan involves AAA, then great, and we're happy to help you. But certainly, no matter how you go, you can make sure that things are in good shape. So, on a preliminary basis, if you're taking that long road trip, you want to make sure that you're gassed up because you might want to stop a little sooner than when you're almost to empty as you're making these trips because you may end up in the middle of somewhere. You have a situation where you're requiring that car to maybe help heat you if you're sitting there delayed for a period of time. And so you might want to fill up every time you get to half a tank or something like that on this trip. So it's just something like that you can be thinking about. We plan to rescue somewhere around 570,000 people over the
Wow.
Thanksgiving holiday. And the common culprits are always going to be there: the dead batteries, the flat tires, the engine fluid leaks, those things. Now, obviously, if you're ahead of the game and you've done a pre-trip vehicle inspection, then you've maybe prevented some of those issues from happening. And certainly, if you haven't done that for this time around, if you're going somewhere for end of year holidays, I would definitely recommend doing it then. But you think about your emergency kit, and you've got the first aid, the snacks and water, some extra blankets and warm clothes and things like that. Those things all matter. And it's, just some basic tools. One thing we also talk about is a tarp. If you have that, you've got a little bit of a moisture barrier between you and the
Mm.
road. So if you need to change a tire, look under your car. That's maybe something that people are comfortable doing on their own, but you probably don't want to get soaked and lay in ice and snow to do it. And so maybe a tarp and a couple of towels that you throw in the back of your car. But, no matter who you are, if it's a matter of getting somewhere safely, we want people to do that. And one of the best ways to do that, of course, is to check the weather before you go. Don't blindly follow that GPS because if the road isn't maintained, you may need to
Hmm.
wait or turn around or reroute. Don't just continue on hoping that it's somehow going to get better. If you don't know it's going to get better, then be a little skeptical from a safety standpoint.
Well, as always, sure appreciate all of these tips and safe travels to everybody out there. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Absolutely. I hope everybody gets plenty of rest and stays safe. And of course, pack your patience. That's the main thing.
Absolutely. We've been talking with Matthew Conde, the Public and Government Affairs Director with AAA Idaho, about the start of the holiday travel season. Thanks so much for listening to Idaho Matters. Boise State Public Radio and Idaho Matters are members of the NPR network. It's an independent coalition of public media podcasters. You can find more shows in the network wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Gemma Gaudette. We'll see you tomorrow.
No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast. No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.